All right, it's time to talk about snake oil. It's time to talk about AIML and how it can be used and why it can be used and where you shouldn't use it. And I would argue that it isn't snake oil, by the way. As referenced before, it's pervasive and it's everywhere. It's not a trick. It's actually an aspirin to many of the challenges that you all face. Enough of the visuals. We have 3 customer advisory boards. They really are customer advisory boards on AIML. We've got one in the Americas for the US and Canada. We've got one in the UK because I always speak loudly in a long time. And we've got one down under in Australia for Australia and New Zealand. And we work with them regularly, showing them what we're doing in the lab, listening to them to what they're doing in their various areas. And the worldwide view of this is very interesting. And through those, we're fusing together what we're doing in the labs. We have yet to release, other than the messaging, other than messaging on the conversational SMS, we have yet to release AIML. Our intentions are to do so in Q3 in a soft launch, in Q4 in a soft launch, and we'll make it available in next year for those who aren't part of the CAB and the AIML. And we'll have a flag where you can turn off whether or not the system uses AIML, because that's what some of you agencies want. So we're being shaped and formed by a CAB. This isn't us to market to them. This is really an influential advisory board. Okay. So let's talk about flight. 1903, the Wright brothers flew planes. Miraculous. Go forward, what was it? 24 years, and we have the first transatlantic flight. It's incredible when you think about it, just 24 years later. The end of World War II, 1947, 20 years later, we break the sound barrier. And just 66 years after the first flight, human beings are on the moon talking back to us and walking around. It's pretty incredible. The pace of innovation is probably unpredictable and was unprecedented. Okay? Incredible. Let's look at AIML. If you go back to 2018, I don't know if you remember that someone beat the Grandmaster of Go. The first thing you did was Google Go to find out what Google was. Then they started to beat the chess Grandmasters, right? And that was DeepMind, for what it was worth, if you remember the DeepMind project. The first well-known use of AIML, I would argue. And so it continued. So if you go to 2020, 2021, then it starts to have decent voice recognition. Siri excluded, of course, but decent voice recognition, and you would start to get voice to text, text interpretation when you input text. It would start to understand that. That's 20 and 21. 21, 22, 23 is when it started to transform healthcare. Protein structures were being predicted. For those of you not exposed to those areas who don't have families with health issues, it has transformed the way that we produce vaccines and those others. I could have picked 7 or 8 different industries. The interesting fact is the pace of acceleration in AIML is absolutely daunting. It's why NVIDIA is at the top of the list. I think Taylor Swift wants to become the CEO of NVIDIA. That's what I've heard just recently. No, I haven't. And so if the pace of flight was the pace of AIML and innovation, and we're just at the foothills of the AIML innovation, we would have been on the moon in 1913, to give you a sense of what's going on right now. What we did in the lab 6 months ago makes us giggle today in terms of what we're achieving. So part of our timing is, when do we stabilize? When do we find things that are safe and secure? And we'll talk about some of the risks. So it is incredible what's happening. We're paying attention to it. We first announced generative AI. We showed you GPT-3 3 years ago at this meeting, and people were like, where did that come from? But it really was one of the first ones in GPT. I'll share the slides. Okay, how long, am I 10 minutes to go yet, or have I got longer? I'll assume I've got longer then, great. So I want to talk to you about a few areas of using AIML in the context of communications. We're going to walk through these. I'll show a few of them by example as we look at going up the mountain of AIML and leveraging it to the benefit of the people we serve. Okay. Let's look at advanced analytics. This is actually, it's been redacted to protect the innocent. This is in fact an advanced analytics from that ellipsis I showed you. This is the advanced analytics for a federal agency that combines communication data with data that they have themselves. And these dashboards were constructed. We use AWS technology, QuickSight for what it's worth, and we produce those dashboards. So this is a merger of analytics. And by the way, it can do things like anomaly detection. This seems weird. That's strange. You may be interested in that. So just good contemporary analytics through the fusion of data.